Hi there, welcome back to AGRC 223 Plant and Animal Disease. This is Unit 3, and we turn our attention back to the agronomy section and talk about corn insect diseases, main ones that are problematic to this area. So let's get right to our content here. The first one is we'll hit into corn borer, and whether it's European or southwestern corn borer, something quite common and historically quite common to here in southern Illinois. And we talk about some data here on the slide. It can be as low as 3% yield loss per corn for corn borer per plant. Sweet corn, it's almost 3 times that. But what you see whenever you find an infestation of corn borer in your fields is they'll bore into the stalk. They can bore up all the way into the tassel, sometimes the cob, and potentially even the ear, even though that's quite less common. Most of the time, if you find an active corn borer infestation in your field, it's most likely in the stalk somewhere. The mature larvae are about 1 inch long. When you look at the eastern corn borer, I got a picture here in a little bit, and about 4/10 of an inch long. The southwestern corn borer, they'll be a little bit smaller and have black dots on those. But those adults will overwinter in stalks and stubble and cobs, etc. Pupate early April to July, and those moths, emerge about 2 to 3 weeks later. So you can actually put sticky traps out in your field. I know, we've done that with students in our program out there during crop scouting class. Put sticky traps out there and try and catch whatever moth flight is happening that time of year. Prevention. Destruction of winter crop substances, which of course that begs the question, well, what about cover crops, or what about soil residue cover? A management decision that you have to make, and obviously, we've got a technology that's been used quite extensively for some time in BT corn. If you get planting out there early, that usually improves drastically your plant vigor and availability to withstand corn borer damage. Before the age of BT corn, and lots of you younger generation that are going to be listening in and viewing this video would not have recalled a severe corn borer infestation where you would have a lot of green snap look type of thing, or just stalks breaking over simply due to the severe corn borer infestation that they maybe had. Treatment here, you can go chemical application, but there's no doubt that you've got to get to them before they bore into the stalk. So you have to be able to get that larvae as it's hatched right out of the egg sac on the underside or midline of the leaf. And so that's a tricky timing thing that you have to pay attention to. Those of you who like to grow sweet corn, you may go a treatment every once a week to try and cut into that. BT corn that's a trait that we've bred into corn, that whenever the larvae consumes any plant that has that trait in it, it kills them. And I mentioned here, how might it be managed? And that's changed over time. It used to be that you had to plant 20% of your field into non-BT traded corn in order to prevent animals from becoming resistant to it. So you had to buy, somewhat 2 separate traded varieties to go into the same field and have a refuge area within your field. Now, of course, you find that refuge in a bag technology that's out there, a product in which those non-BT seeds are mixed all throughout the field, which therefore hopefully cutting back on any resistance development that you might see. Couple pictures here. Here's a larvae that's boring into that cob area. Certainly at this stage where you're full dent, what's the likelihood of that causing problem? Well, only if the ear drops off and gets onto the ground. Here's what you'll more likely see, and this is an active borer inside that stalk. And I've done this myself, scouting it out in my own fields. You can kind of, as you're out scouting for it, you can look down through your corn rows, and if you see where it looks like someone took a shotgun and shot their shotgun right down the rows, you see shot holes in the leaves, and leaves that are kind of broke over right at the midvein. And if you go and find those particular plants, you'll sometimes find the egg sac there where the larvae have hatched, and then you'll find where they've bored right into the stalk, and that's the most active, most common infestation that you will find. Next is corn rootworm, kind of probably the second most common one in this particular section, and certainly in Illinois, depending upon where you are. It's fairly common in southern Illinois. The folks, let's say north of I-70, complain about this a whole lot more, where that rootworm that will bore into the seedling and or ruin the bud or growth point. And certainly, they'll take care of a plant right away just after emergence when we talk about this particular infestation. So they'll feed on the roots. Sometimes if they feed along the roots of older, more established corn, they'll do that as well. That yield loss is going to be much less significant. Control of these, your typical corn and soybean crop rotation, used to really provide you some excellent control with this. What you're finding out there, and what we found scouting fields in our program, is the beetles are getting smart, and they have figured out to go lay their eggs in the soybean field, anticipating that corn crop the next season. And so we've had to make sure and be scouting more regularly for corn rootworm, even here in southern Illinois. Treated seed, BT corn, very effective. Making sure that we have some options out there. Soil applied insecticide, maybe not as that's a technology used by a lot. You plant corn and spray right away. That insecticide can really help cut into a rootworm population. Next, and probably one of the less common problem causers, is earworm and direct damage to the ear. In the past, you'd see somewhere around 2% of the corn crop victim to this pest. Not a great deal, but if you look across the corn belt, that can be a lot of bushels of corn. In southern Illinois, you're probably talking 2 generations per year in our area, and if you get to the southern U.S., that might be as many as 7 generations, so much more risk factor when you have that many more generations. Again, overwinters in the soil in the top 9 inches, so a good freeze will take care of some of these guys. Moth emergence in the spring, and they could lay scads of eggs, and as you get pollination, they'll eat on those developing kernels, which then, of course, anytime you get damage to that developing ear, then you've got an entry point for mold and aflatoxins, other insects, and all kinds of things. So one of the things, if you look through the trait book on your seed corn catalogs, you'll find heavy husk varieties or protection, ear quality, and that's mainly targeted at earworm. When you get out there early in the spring and get some tillage done, you'll probably disturb these pupae and probably kill them off before they have a chance to emerge and cause a problem. And then again, if you can catch them before they get into the ear, much like the corn borer gets into the stalk, a chemical treatment, an insecticide, can do a really effective job of killing these guys off. But again, you got to get them before they get into hiding. Next is the chinch bug, and again, probably not real common in terms of causing massive yield loss, but you'll have those freak incidents out there where all of a sudden you've got a really nice field of corn next to a small grain of wheat field, and you get migration of that bug out of one crop into the next. And so in really severe, rare cases, it can destroy an entire field. Can't tell you the last time I've heard that happen in a very widespread area, but I have heard of it. So they will migrate somewhat by foot. If we're talking about wheat in June and July, right as wheat begins to ripen and you get out there with the combine, they still need things to eat. So they'll migrate to that neighboring cornfield and start to feed on that. One of the ways that you can do this, if you anticipate it, instead of a full field application, if they're mobile on the ground, you can just simply spray a barrier strip right around the field edge. That will tend to take care of it. If they're winged and they're flying, then obviously that doesn't work too good. And there also are some resistant varieties out there for that. As we start to get to the end of this section, rather shorter section than the last one in Unit 2, I would talk about nematodes, and certainly not one that is really commonly being talked about in the industry with regard to corn. Obviously, soybean cyst nematode, a much greater problem that we'll talk about later in the semester. But if you talk to agronomists and those that are studying soil, they're really looking into nematodes in corn. We know that there are at least 10 species that can cause damage, and we're really talking about root injury that causes then stunted growth, poor nutrient uptake, poor plant color, poor ability to uptake water, and then obviously introduction of any other kind of soil-borne disease that might come along. So it's sometimes confused with other things, whether it's a nutrient deficiency or stress, whether it's a drought stress or water stress. So it's not commonly identified. So if you suspect that you've got a nematode problem and they're developing resistant varieties to this as well, that a soil analysis will tell you if you've got a soil nematode problem with corn. Finishing up here on a couple other ones related to corn, and that's weevil. And obviously not one that you would worry about out in the field, even though you can carry a field infestation into the bin. Weevil causing field loss out in the field is pretty rare. So it's, again, very commonly in infested stored grain. They'll fly in from the fields and start to damage a standing corn crop in the south, but again, not very common here. So any kind of heavy husk variety also helps cut into the weevil population. Fumigation in the bin is really the most effective way of treating an infested bin of corn. And in terms of treatment, prevention is just putting it in at the proper moisture and simply maintaining and scouting your bin the right way. They can extensively damage grain quality if you've got an infestation of weevil in a stored grain bin that you're not taking care of. So be aware of that. We talk about all the time, scouting effectively in your fields and knowing what's going on in your fields. And don't forget, once you get a crop in the bin, that you still need to scout. Last two here, and maybe we're not dedicating enough time to these two, but cutworms, whether we're talking about black cutworm and armyworm, two types of worms that basically crawl right along the ground and either cut the plant off right at the ground or strip the plant completely bare. Dependent upon the year, these guys both can be really problematic. Armyworms generally you'll see, and cutworms too to some extent, associated with a wheat crop or a pasture area or right next to a newly planted cornfield as that plant starts to emerge, and it's much more succulent and tastes a lot better than maybe the pasture that they're in, and they'll start moving in waves. And I've seen times where you get waves of armyworms that are crossing the road, and you can see them very easily visually moving from field to field. Certainly can destroy a nice stand of corn. And so you want to be proactive, again, being in your fields, scouting on a regular basis. If you know that you've got close growing crops next to a cornfield that may be susceptible, keep an eye on that. A barrier treatment usually is pretty effective. Sometimes just simply a dry spell. Armyworms don't handle a dry spell, and so they'll they don't handle it being hot and dry. So sometimes simply a weather change will take care of that population. So, but certainly two pests that you want to keep your eyes out for, because they can really damage a nice stand of corn early. That concludes Unit 3, Corn Insect Diseases. I hope you listen to this full video, review some of the other videos I stick up there on Blackboard before you take your assessment. Best of luck to you.